Resilience.
To ti je da te žive s punih healthom.
Each Neo comes with a
neck and my arms, hearing some of these melodies, and of course she's singing like an angel. By the way, I don't know a word she's singing. And I can feel everything. So I'm not a soprano. I don't consider myself a soprano, but I can kind of fake these notes. Not fake these notes, but I can sing in this range a little bit. Maybe not with as much depth. You want, you can find that link directly below in the description. Communicating with. I love the there's kind of like this, I'm getting a flamenco kind of vibe in this one. Yeah, well, okay.
Kako se kaže kome, pčele ili pčele?
Kako ti hoćeš?
Alright, you got the low vocals.
Već sad, što je? Preko vatre je sam tu bi... A ja... Kad bačaš bombu preko vatre, odmah se aktivira.
Nisam znao, nije ti bilo logično, ne?
Šta?
Nije ti bilo logično, ne?
Ali ne stani malo, ja sam bača, znači
Kad? Prije koliko?
10 metara preko vatre.
Prije koliko si to radio? To su
Sad.
pre...
Sad sam to
To je uvijek radilo. Zadnjih godina dana to radi tako. Nije radilo u startu jer nisu znali kako da kodiraju vatru, a sad kad preleti bilo šta eksplozivno preko vatre, aktivira se instant. Možeš sticky bombu da baciš preko vatre da ubiješ čovjeka iza vatre, na primjer. Frag isto, dinamit. Rokneš veliki dynamite u vatru i ubiješ i sebe i onoga iza.
Ja, nisam znao da to tako radi. There is nobody, man, he's kidding, no, just, I killed myself.
And he's going, this could easily be a System of a Down song, easily. You know what I mean? Like it's really cool to hear stuff like this because you could tell that, you know, I've listened to a lot of modern bands do things that I'm like, where the hell did you think of that? You know, I'm thinking like, how did you think of that melody? And then I hear stuff like this, it's just like, so it was written in the stars many years ago. You know, like it's great to hear the source of so many things, to dive into that, because a lot of the time I don't listen to this stuff.
Ona je baš bilo udarilo jedno u drugu. Ovo nije udarilo. Ovo je bila vatra, ja sam bača preko vatre.
I'm guessing, what is this, French? Sounds French.
Bačiš bombu preko vatre. 10 metara preko vatre. Šta ću mitaboldu da stajem u finish.
Beautiful, beautiful violin.
Gdje?
I love the sounds of violins, man. That's the thing also that I love about this singer. She's like a string instrument her voice is like a string instrument in and of itself. Those swells that kind of like swell and bend and swell. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what Freddie would do a lot of in all the layered vocals in Queen. Very much like, you know, layered harmonies that swelled like they were orchestral. No, that wasn't good. I'll just leave it to her. No. You know, like, again, it's like these cool little riffs that go into a real nice, swelled, beautifully on pitch legato note. By the way, she's a soprano. It's interesting for someone like me who is a high baritone or a low tenor. I don't know if there's a difference. I have to admit, I'm not classically trained. You know, I've never had any formal training where I've studied the voice, but I'm one of those too. And what I found is that the higher I go up in my range, the easier it is that I can kind of sit in this range, just not with the same tone as her. As you go higher, your voice goes more into that register of head voice, which becomes easier to do the higher you go. What's really difficult is being in a mix, you know, to have like where you're at the top of your absolute limit of where your natural belting voice can go, and you have to start mixing into head voice. That's the kind of thing that you have to develop a real strong muscle memory for, because you know, for me, that's always been a challenge to keep consistent with all the different styles of music that I do. This is interesting. Nice.
Witness jebote. To je dobro, je.
Powerful, man.
Sad vidimo gdje su je.
Really nice baritone voices in there.
Ti šta da uvijek možeš da se blinkuješ čoče na bilo kojeg zombija.
Nastaješ bolje. Ako imaš witness, vidiš svakog zombija okolo koji je živ ili mrtav sa tim shadow lipom. Možeš da vidiš u 100 metara, možeš da vidiš u 100 metara kad se ugasi zombi. Znači više nije validan za teleportovanje. Znači neko je ubio zombija, kapiraš? Ili ga ubila vatra ili ga je neko zaklo nožem ili...
Ko će to gledat non stop?
Ne gledaš non stop, ti ulaziš s jedne strane kompounda, oni ulaze s druge strane. Ako si u stanju da vidiš da je zombi umro i ugasio se samo, znaš. A nije ono tipa da je ušao u vatru, znaš, nego je samo ono...
Zašto ne vidim na konje?
Na konja ne znam, ne da može se teleportaš. Ah, this is the fuse, guys. I think the fuse.
Masu. Gdje ćeš tamo biti?
So, Counter Strike, basically.
Vamo gore ti je bliže, pa ja sam vrćen za...
CS mod.
Joooo, kak je ja skudio.
Rally on that location.
Naš pojen je tu kroz prozor. Zove prozor.
Susan B.
Tank.
Welcome to my channel.
Ima li ga uopšte?
Fucking tank.
Ono bara gdje ti sve pinguješ. Ima gore, znam da imam šta nude.
Susan B. Thanks for following.
Spotted a sniper. I got enemy in sight. Enemy contact in my AO.
Press F2. Press F2, man. Or F3 to change the position to a rifle.
Ajde, već.
Yeah, thanks for covering.
Your side's been wiped out, but don't get hung up on it. You'll get it next time.
And is probably like. Beautiful. Show me the meaning of being lonely. It's just a feeling. Have you ever noticed that Backstreet Boys have that vibe in their production sometimes? It's like that kind of flamenco and orchestral. That's what made a lot of 90s pop, by the way, good, was that they took from so many different places. There were so many different, like, you know, interesting melodies, and they weren't always major. It was like minor at times, you know, and I personally love songs in minor scales. There's so much more feeling to it. Like it invokes such a different kind of emotional response. For me, it's either sad or glorious, and sometimes a mix of both. And that's why I love bands like Muse a lot of the time, System of a Down. By the way, there's probably a lot of people watching this who are absolute, you know, they're connoisseurs of orchestral, classical music and stuff that are cringing listening to me try to emulate anything of what I'm hearing. I just want to let you know that I am a rock singer, a metal singer. I always experiment with my voice, so I'm definitely not anywhere close to the caliber of what I'm hearing here, but I'm just kind of feeling things out for myself and trying what I'm hearing here, because anytime I hear something as good as this, I always just want to emulate it, see if there's something that I can feel, if I can feel something similar to what I'm hearing, and I discover a different sensation that I can potentially use as a tool in some way in the future for future videos or my own music. That's what I do, you know, and it's actually a big part of the reason why I've grown my voice the way that I have, because I've dared to step into areas of singing that probably a lot of people they wouldn't even want to, because they'd think like, oh, like, you know, I can't do that, you know, which I understand, but that's part of what I do here, and there you go.
Mogu da priđem, pa i sren, čuti.
Chills, man. There's no other kind of music for me that can bring out emotions that I can't explain without knowing what they're saying than this kind of music.
Vidiš, im ubije svojom šikiricom.
Šta ti je to fascinantno?
Aj evo te, znaš kako si promašio lik, znaš kako si spomjerak vrhunski.
Šta ljudi znaš da se kreću? Pa znaju.
Putting a reverb on your
voice.
Da, a ne kao ovi talibani s kojima mi igramo, koji Shift W napred.
glorious, you know, to hear natural
Da.
rappers like that. with
Nećemo reći
singers
koji su,
who
oni
are
znaju
in
vrlo
tune
dobro
with each other,
koji su.
layering their voices. Like, you know, you can't fake this. You really can't.
Ajde, pozdrav ih.
Full.
Onak, šta znam. Nisi.
Rain while the guitar through the internet. So
Dobar je onaj
George
mod
David
glume.
Weiss. You know what I didn't know until I did Can't Help Falling in Love with You in the style of Queen recently earlier this year was that it was actually adapted from an old French love song called Les Yeux d'Amour. I definitely screwed that up. I'm sorry, French fans. Composed in 1784. Look at that. 1784 by Jean-Paul Van Damme. No, Jean-Paul Egidi Martini. I'm sorry for my pronunciation, but it was composed in 1784, which means I'm assuming that it was public domain and it was able to be turned into Can't Help Falling in Love. You know, that's such an iconic song. Who doesn't know Can't Help Falling in Love? And it was taken from classical music. That's the point that I'm making, is that, you know, my music business teacher once told me,
fly on their own servers. A few months later, in October 2011, the infamous incident happened. By far the Indie Stone's lowest point. The team had just moved into a new apartment in Newcastle when, one night, after celebrating with a few drinks, someone broke in and stole their laptops and credit cards. But those laptops weren't just hardware, because they contained months of work. Between moving apartments and preparing for the game's next big update, nothing had been backed up for 2 months. The only recent backups were on the stolen machines. When the team posted the news on their blog, the internet turned on them without hesitation. Accusations spread quickly across Reddit and beyond. No one was able to believe that they somehow forgot to back up their game for such a long time. Some branded them scammers or criminals. Trolls camped on their forums and Twitter feeds. Out of it came a new phrase, getting zomboided, shorthand in the indie scene for forgetting to back up your game and losing everything. Even at GDC, developers joked about it. For the team, it was devastating. Some fell into a deep depression. Marina, still in Canada at the time, felt powerless and wished she could just give her teammates a hug. There was one silver lining. Other indie developers, watching the disaster unfold, immediately set up offsite backups. If nothing else, the Indie Stone's very public failure became a cautionary tale that may have spared others from the same fate. Despite all the hate they received, some fans reached out with messages of support, reminding the team that people still believed in Project Zomboid. Slowly, the Indie Stone began to rebuild. The team shared their unique story of mistakes and misfortunes at Eurogamer Expo 2012. During a panel titled How Not to Make a Game. New updates gradually added new systems and features. Early builds from 2012 even included primitive NPC survivors, meant to capture the chaos of a world full of other desperate people. But the systems were unstable, riddled with bugs and odd NPC behavior. It got so bad the team had to remove NPCs from the game entirely and promised to insert them again once the game was more stable. It was around this time that Marina became a full-time member of the team. The negativity around the developers began to shift as the game's community saw how much effort the Indie Stone was putting into the game and refused to give up on it. In September 2012, Project Zomboid was greenlit on Steam Greenlight. At the time, Greenlight was a chance for indie developers to get noticed on the biggest PC platform in the world. In November 2013, after a year of preparations, the latest version of the game was finally released as an early access title on Steam. It was a huge step forward for the developers. Steam offered stability, long-term visibility, and a much larger audience than the team had ever reached before. For the first time since founding the studio, the Indie Stone could stop worrying about making rent. They finally had real financial security. That being said, development didn't suddenly speed up after the Steam release. Project Zomboid was still a complex game where every new feature could take months, sometimes years to get right. While the foundation was there at this stage, many of the promised features were still missing. It would take many more years of systems being rewritten, replaced, or rebuilt from the ground up to realize the game's full potential. In 2014, the Indie Stone released Build 26, which not only introduced 3D character models, but also an early version of multiplayer, letting players survive the apocalypse together for the first time. However, performance issues made it practically unplayable, and the mode was eventually removed. The team went back to the drawing board. In the meantime, new updates kept coming to improve other areas of the game. Build 33 overhauled sound, making everyday actions riskier and more consequential. Build 39 added vehicles, which are useful for covering distance, but the loud engine can also attract a horde of zombies. One of the more important updates came with Build 40 in 2018. New temperature and weather systems forced players to think about more than just food and zombies. Seasons changed the gameplay. Winter nights can freeze you, summer heat can leave you dehydrated, and rain can soak your clothes and spread illness. Additionally, new traits, professions, and skills were added that made survivors feel more individual. Then came Build 41 in 2021, the biggest and arguably most anticipated update in the game's history. Animations were rebuilt from the ground up, giving characters smoother movement, proper combat stances, and a new sense of weight and vulnerability. Zombies behaved and moved in more realistic ways. As a result, fights felt more desperate than ever before. Most importantly, multiplayer finally made its return. The clunky, buggy multiplayer architecture from 2014 was entirely rewritten with the help from General Arcade, a third-party studio with networking expertise. The result was stable, 32-player servers that finally delivered the experience fans had been waiting for. Within days of release, the game climbed up the Steam charts. It peaked at number 4 on the global top grossing list, and player numbers surged to new heights. Back in 2020, Project Zomboid was celebrating 5,000 concurrent players, but when Build 41 dropped in December 2021, those numbers exploded to over 65,000 concurrent players. Twitch and YouTube quickly featured lots of streams of chaotic co-op runs, bringing in a new wave of fans. In the month after Build 41 released, Zomboid sold 23 times more copies than it had during the same holiday period the year before. For a decade-old early access title that had survived on what the developers jokingly called the drip, steady but modest daily sales, it was an impressive achievement. After a decade of setbacks and slow progress, Project Zomboid has become one of the most successful survival games ever made. The team admitted they always knew multiplayer could be big, but the sheer scale of its success was beyond anything they'd expected. We're unlikely to ever work on anything this expansive ever again. Finally seeing it break out and seeing all the wonderfully kind and complimentary comments on social media from people just discovering the game is great. Most importantly too, it's been so lovely seeing the joy that our own community seems to take from the game's success. It feels like our community has become incredibly invested in seeing the game take off. That's been really touching to see. So, what's next for Project Zomboid? In an interview with New Musical Express, Chris mentioned that NPCs are the most requested feature, and also the one they've taken the most criticism for not having in the game. Therefore, NPCs are the next big milestone, and they'll be gradually implemented over multiple updates. Beyond that, the team also wants to expand the tech tree to give players more of an endgame. Right now, survival eventually settles into a loop of farming, scavenging, and fortifying. The goal is to add more long-term crafting and building systems that give players something new to strive for. The developers have always treated Project Zomboid as their dream zombie game, a game that keeps growing layer by layer until it becomes the most detailed simulation of the zombie apocalypse anyone's ever made. They're confident they'll someday reach Build 1.0, but that will also be the day the team will move on to something new. We love the game dearly, but it does take a toll, spending this amount of time working on a single project. And there is that desire to work on something new. That's always burning, but we can't do that while it's in early access. So the moment it goes to 1.0 is the day a lot of us will hang our spurs up on it forever. Maybe there will be DLC, or maybe we'll get another team, or port the consoles. But 1.0 is when we're done, and we don't want to be done until we've got exactly what we want.
Okay, this is weird. We have two high-profile AAA games, both of them reviewed well, both of them struggling to find players and sales, which has critics scratching their heads wondering why, and all the while that's happening, yet another indie game has come from the top ropes and just bodied everybody. What's really weird about this is that nobody's talking about it. You can barely find anything on this game, yet more and more people keep finding it and playing it and loving it. It's a single player, yes, a single player extraction shooter named Escape from Duckov. Can you guys guess where it got its inspiration from? This game has continued to grow day over day to the point it is now battling for the top 5 most played games on Steam, switching spots with Battlefield 6 at any given moment. A game, mind you, that was made by 5 people and cost less than $20. Are they not seeing the pattern here? I think this game highlights just how disconnected much of the industry is from its audience, especially when it comes to what kind of games to design, because these guys are just so focused on multiplayer, so focused on live service. Man, do they want that money. And all they're doing is just ignoring single-player audiences and casual audiences. But you have a game like this and a team like this that discovers a far more addicting and satisfying loop by taking a game that's traditionally multiplayer and making it single-player. So today what I want to do is I want to talk about why 2 major AAA games are struggling to find players right now, how the industry needs to stop ignoring the biggest player bases in the world, and how a game about ducks is a lot more than meets the eye. The more I play this game, the more I keep asking, what is this? Thank you to GameLoft for sponsoring today's video. Asphalt Legends is a free-to-play arcade racing game you can play literally anywhere. PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox, PC, Switch, even on your phone, all with cross-platform progress. Right now they're hosting the Ferrari Esports Asphalt Series, a global competition where players from all over the world will be racing for glory and a spot in the grand finals at the Ferrari Museum in Maranello, Italy on November 16th. You can even watch the live stream on the official Asphalt YouTube channel at 9 p.m. GMT +2. And the best part, you don't even have to be a finalist to win something. Just by registering, you'll instantly earn 250,000 credits, 250 tokens, and get a shot at exclusive prizes like an HP Omen gaming laptop. The limited time event runs from October 27th to November 3rd, so jump in now, race behind the wheel of a Ferrari, and see how far your skills can take you. Download Asphalt Legends using my link and register for the Ferrari Asphalt Series at FerrariAsphaltSeries.com before November 3rd. Again, that's FerrariAsphaltSeries.com. Get in, register, and hit the track. A popular discussion that I've seen pop up recently is how 2 of the most talked about releases this season, Ninja Gaiden 4 and Outer Worlds 2, are both struggling out of the gate. These are not low-profile releases. They were reviewed well. Both of them landed in the mid to high 80s on Metacritic, and yet Ninja Gaiden 4 only peaked at 11,000 concurrent players on Steam, while Outer Worlds barely cleared 10,000 in early access, 3,000 less than Avowed, which could foreshadow an even weaker launch for that game and some serious fallout for that studio. When someone asked what went wrong, I summed it up on Twitter saying, fun fact, if you bought all of the biggest releases in the past 2 months, you would have spent almost $700. Just the AAA ones, $420. Just the indies and remasters, less than $100. Players cannot survive these prices or the volume of these games, neither will these companies. The real problem that we're running into is that all these publishers stack their release calendars trying to dodge out on Grand Theft Auto 6, and now they're all just colliding with one another. Too many games, too close together, all costing far more than anyone can justify because, I mean, let's be honest, nobody's going to be picking up $6, $70 games in 2 months. Most people are going to grab 1, maybe 2, and that's about it. Adding another one on top of that just doesn't make any financial sense, especially when every single launch is feeling like a gamble on whether or not it's good or whether or not it even works at all. I mean, it's not like people are buying these games based off of critic scores. Critic scores don't matter. People don't trust them anymore. There's too much built-in bias, too much inconsistency. These scores rarely reflect the real quality of the game, so when something launches, these players are going in blind. And when they're already strapped for cash, it's not like they're going to take a risk unless that game is affordable and it's something they are absolutely sure is fun. The only assurance that exists for a lot of players today is seeing it for themselves or hearing from friends, and that's exactly how we ended up here with yet another indie game blowing up out of nowhere despite all of these high-profile games failing. Escape from Duckov is a single-player spin on Escape from Tarkov. It launched back on October 16th with around 30,000 players, and at the time of recording this video, it has already passed over 300,000 players with no signs of slowing down. Those are numbers that we usually see for multiplayer hits, not single-player games, but this game is breaking every expectation. I swear, this is one of the most deceptive, accessible, and absurdly well-built games I have ever played. Despite how it looks, Every single system in this game feels like it was assembled with surgical precision. The shooting, the looting, the pacing, it all lines up perfectly. The extraction and discovery loops are some of the most satisfying that I've ever seen in what's usually a multiplayer format. At its core, the game is basically Escape from Tarkov, but it's the way that you always wish that it would play. You start out with one NPC at your base that gives you tutorial quests. You then drop into the first area, hunt for loot, fight off enemies, gather materials, food, water, building supplies, everything you need to be able to expand your base. As you finish the quest for that first NPC, you start finding others out in the world. Back at base, you're building crafting benches and shops, which unlock even more NPCs, and suddenly they're all giving you their own quest lines. Every one of them is feeding into your exploration, what you can craft, what you can buy, and how strong your character becomes. Crafting and gunplay feels shockingly good for something that's basically a top-down twin-stick shooter. Weapons have real spread, recoil, fire rate, and damage values, all of which can be modified with attachments. Earlier fights are rough, brutal even in some cases, but as you learn the rhythms, how to dodge, when to take cover, what enemies you can rush, and which ones you can avoid, it all starts to click. If you die, you can always get one shot to go and recover your gear on the next run, and even if you lose that, well, that's fine. There's a safety net, boxes at the start of each raid that are stocked up with basic weapons to make sure that you never feel defenseless. Now, something that I really love is that as you continue to play the game, you're going to earn experience and materials that you're going to be able to spend on trainers. These guys let you unlock skill trees and passive upgrades that boost your base stats, making the earlier zones easier while still keeping those late game areas tense and punishing. It nails that power fantasy.
Welcome to my
so
channel.
well, that feeling of growth without
Hey,
ever
you
losing
stream
any
really
of its
well.
edge.
I'll love to become your dedicated fan and support you. Mind adding me on Discord, Death Race?
You don't say which part of my stream is well made.
You can blow open new pathways with
Which part?
explosives or activate
Exactly.
teleporters to link areas together. The more you explore, the easier it becomes to navigate, and the more the game just continues to open up. I swear this game is like a nesting doll of content. Every layer hides another one behind it. Every single system is feeding into the next. At first, I thought the entire thing was just limited to the starting zone, maybe 1 or 2 areas at max. I hit the warehouse area and figured, okay, that's probably the end, but no, then I unlocked the farm town, a zone that is easily 5 times as large as the last, filled with roaming bosses, armored enemies, and then I got murdered by an arcade machine, and then I realized there's still 2 more zones after this. I just sat there thinking to myself, how big is this game? I am 20 hours in, and I feel like I have barely scratched the surface. I'm just sitting here in disbelief. I just don't get it. The design of this game is so deliberate. Every piece of it, the way that you upgrade, the way that exploration flows, how attachments meaningfully change your weapons, how your weapon choice changes your playstyle, how loot placement starts to make sense the longer that you play. Every single system feels so intuitive, layered, and deliberate. 1 minute, I'm clearing rooms feeling like I'm a god. The next, I'm hiding behind a wall, clinging to my own life, praying that I don't lose everything. Anyway, the difficulty that you would expect from a game like this is absolutely there, but it never feels punishing. The entire game scales so naturally, and when you fail, it's still fun to climb back. Unlike Tarkov, extraction shooters really haven't broken through yet, even though this industry seems convinced that they are the next big thing. I definitely don't think they are. Tarkov might be popular, but it's still niche, and to be honest with you, much of that is still self-inflicted. The cheating problems, the broken promises, the rug-pulled features quietly moved into pricier editions, it's ridiculous. Their whole monetization model is basically just selling quality of life back to the player, extra stash space, better trader reputation, access to more of the game, prices that are ranging anywhere from $50 to $250. None of it essential, all of it fueled by greed. But beyond that, I don't think that extraction shooters mix well with casual audiences. They punish anybody who has a job. If you only have a few hours a week, if you die, lose everything, it's going to take you weeks to recover. Meanwhile, the players who are still playing the game keep getting stronger, widening the gap until the wipe resets everything all over again. It's just so damn exhausting. I feel like Duckov is the Tarkov that I've always wanted, and it was only for under $20. The lack of multiplayer in this game is not a flaw. I think it's the reason why this game works. By stripping out the competitive pressure, they made this entire genre more accessible, more satisfying, and replayable in a way that Tarkov and none of these other games ever will. And I really think that this game is cracked into something that the rest of the industry has slept on. Everybody is chasing competition, chasing live service, chasing permanence in this industry, and in doing that, they forgot the simplest part. These games are supposed to be fun to play, not exhausting to survive. I really think that this game is tapped into something special because back when I first bought Escape from Tarkov, the PvE side of the game is what sold me on it. That's what I was looking forward to the most. I guarantee there's a lot of other people that feel that way, and it took a long time for it to come out, and when it finally did, well, they shoved it into the Unheard Of edition. The only thing unheard of was how much of a ripoff that was because they got rid of the Edge of Darkness edition and pretended like they never promised us anything in the first place. Fuck you, Nikita, and I cannot wait to see you try to pull that bullshit on Steam. Now here I am getting exactly what I wanted from this game, and I'm getting it for a fraction of the price. It's far more accessible, fun, and it's not even close to as exhausting. And I mean that on both fronts. I mean that both on the gameplay side, but also on the price side. I brought up how you would spend over $400 on new releases. That was just me talking about the most high-profile ones. There's a ton of games that I left off that list. It would easily total up over $700. Nobody can afford that. Not right now, probably not ever. There's just too many games in too high a frequency at too high of a price. And while some of these games are going to succeed, more and more of them are going to fail, and I think that we're seeing that right now. Look at all the positive reception that you're seeing around Ninja Gaiden or Outer Worlds 2, but it's not moving the needle.
Welcome to my channel.
Neću da igram s tobom, Milan. Jao, 10 ljudi.
10 Ilija. Vidjeli sam Ilija da je Boris više dugo s vama igrao, a?
Šta? Čitavih 15 minuta.
Battlefield.
Dala mu igra da nas izbaci u zonu, nas je bacio među 5 ljudi. I kad su ga prvo gubili, rekao je, jebeš ti ovo, izašao. Bukvalno se vidi trag dima kad ispadaš iz aviona, gdje drugi ljudi padaju. On nas je bacio među njih.
Ma dobro, ali velim, ja sam probao taj Battlefield jedno 20 sati. Stvarno su ga usrali, previše ljudi unutra.
Previše?
Previše ljudi, premale mape.
Veliki dolazi.
A vidim ga, da.
Kako da ne? Dolazi.
Ja šta si mislio da buš pucao na maloga, da ne buš sankcije ima. Ajmo, idemo unutra. Idemo unutra. Zovem, brže, ajde. A di je ovaj? On nije s nama. Nije.
Eno ga, 20 metara.
Kaj jebe, ovaj. Jebi ga, stari. Probali smo igrati Slavko, onaj, ima sam taks da se vratim iz Barrier City-a.
Aha.
Jedva živ ostao. Boris je poginuo, jedva živ ostao. Ali sam odnesao od tamo 25.000 van.
Jebi ga, nabuđili ljudi sve, jebi ga.
Znaš koliko arkova ima, koliko ima ljudi, ja bog te isu.
That's absolutely marvelous.
Stvarno puno ljudi je gore.
To je apsolutno marvelous.
Sve da, sve tako.
Ja ću još jednu, idem da dremnem malo, vata me kriza posle davanja krvi.
Odi. Odi, samo lagano. Samo lagano.
Do kasno.
Nećemo ništa do kasno.
Nećemo, si čovjek, kakav si čovjek.
Ma pa stvari, pa dosta mi je jebate.
Ej, kakav si čovjek.
Šta se lud. Evo, danas sam zaradio 100.000 i dosta.
Ej, kakav si čovjek, jebate.
Nikakav.
Ko bi rekao da će to da čujem od Borisa, ne mogu da verujem.
Pa nije, ali ne treba forsirat, čemu forsirat? Čemu forsirat, Borisa? Igrat ćemo opet sutra malo i... Ovako i onak vi morate igrat još dosta da me stignete. Ja sam
se usta, nastav glas.
Ja sam, pa ne, ali ja sam 7. level. Aha, čekaj, moram zamijeniti. Ovo nisam zamijenio. Trader, klinik. zamijeni za ovaj. Što je sad to? Confirm, bla bla bla. Aha.
Truć bla bla.
Šta igraš ti li, Javret?
A nešto skidam nekoliko pozdi, nešto bez veze. Obrisao sam onaj Battlefield, ne mogu, igra me forsirat da igram pomozi mi reći duose i kladove, a ja ne volim dikom polažem račune. Moram onda da pecam tebe, Drakulu, ko je voljan da igra, znaš, a to ne volim.
To je bez veze.
Volim da uđem i da mogu da odigram sam ako hoću. Ako imam nekoga da igram, super. Ako nemam, hoću sam da svojim pasom.
Solo, pa da, naravno.
Kao Helldivera isto. Helldivera možeš da igraš sam, možda baciš beacon, dođu ljudi.
Beacon?